his acceptance, and enjoys a feast with everyone. The older son is bitter, and there is no record of him even going into the house for the feast after he talked with his dad. Now, he may have, but we don't know, but it's not in the story. Anyway, but I think this parable is primarily about the father. And when I say I think, it's based on a lot of the others, or I should not other, but scholars and theologians that I've read about this and their points of view. But it's primarily about the father representing God and not the two sons. But the story is grounded in a family, in relationships between these two sons and their father. And the lives of the two sons are defined by the relationship they have with their father. His love for them was not based upon their good behavior or bad behavior. He didn't love them any more or less because of the way of the things they did. He just loved them unconditionally. And it was, what I like to say, it was his love. He was in charge of his love. He owned it. He took responsibility for his love. And I wanted to put this quote from the book, because I thought it was so pertinent for our class today, that says, the Father's love could only be satisfied by love that responded to his love, a relationship that delighted in fellowship, working together in common purpose, and daily coming to know one another. Certainly a comparison of how God wants to have a relationship with us. So when we look at the younger son, and we talked about the prodigal, I think that the story is, there's much more depth to the story than just a nice story about forgiveness. It goes much deeper than that. And the younger son's behavior is based on something much deeper. There's something much deeper going on in this chapter that Jesus is trying to make clear to people. Because the younger son did not come up with this idea or just taking off like this, getting his inheritance and leaving. He didn't come up with that decision overnight. That was something that he had to have been thinking about for a long time, maybe years. And he didn't develop those viewpoints or thoughts that rationalized everything he was brought up to believe in about the Jewish faith, about the culture, about the community, about morality, about integrity, about personal responsibility. He didn't just have that thought one day and go, okay, I'm leaving. This is, people don't do that. That's just not the way we make decisions. There's some thought behind it. And when you look at the traditions and expectations and culture of the Jewish people at that time, the younger son had to go through a very serious deconstruction and disconnection with the world that he was raised in a complete turnaround. Because in that culture, sons were representatives of their fathers. They were identified by their fathers. And there are literally thousands of references in the Old Testament to sons and fathers and being related to one another. It was always so-and-so, the son of so-and-so. You read that continuously in the Old Testament. And the boy's father was obviously a man of wealth, and he was well respected in the community. He probably had a farm. He certainly had servants. And he was an influential member in that town or culture or community. Boys would have been well educated, respected, honored in the community because of their father. And they would be the heirs of their father to his entire estate, and his blessing on them before his death authorized them to carry out the father's hopes and dreams with his estate and the things that they discussed. So families often lived together on the same property, sometimes in the same house. family life, both immediate and extended, was the center of life in that culture. The idea of uprooting one's life to go and live among strangers was the antithesis of a fulfilling life to them. It was unheard of. Family and village life was where people got their sense of belonging. And it was an interdependent culture at that time. And it's, what did I write? Yeah. It's based on mutual love, respect, and caring in an interdependent way. So that's very different, as we know, from our culture. I had some thoughts about what our culture's like. Our families are separated a lot. You know, my sister's here, she lives in Seattle. My other brother lives 2 hours south of that. My other brother lives in Florida. All of us have families all over the country, maybe all over the world. And I'm sure some of us live in neighborhoods where we don't know our neighbors' names. We don't have any interaction with them. Sometimes it's been that way for many years. A variety of worldwide cultural traditions, beliefs, worldviews, and religions fill our neighborhood many times. Very different people in there. Christian values and traditions do not permeate our culture as much as the Jewish culture did in Jesus' time. And options to a Christian ethic and worldview are much more pervasive and accessible, especially now that we can get online. It's all over the place. The prosperity of our culture often diminishes the physical consequences of bad decisions. I like to say there have been a number of situations that I bought my way out of that should have been. And our methods of communication have changed dramatically. So the Jewish people were a concentrated group and nation. We're not a nation of one faith. And value of independence from anyone and anything is highly prized in our culture. It was not so then. Now, none of those things that we have here or what I said are bad in and of themselves. But the difference is there's much more of a disconnect from family and community than there used to be. And we're used to that. It's normal today. We're very used to our families being all over the place, not knowing our neighbors. The way our culture is, we're just used to it now. I'm not trying to make a point that it's bad, but it is the way it is, and it's very different than the culture that this young man was raised in. And I make that point because what he's saying and what he's doing is so radical, so out of the ordinary for that time and place. It wouldn't be so much today. And he's basically cutting loose of the way of thinking and acting and living that's been handed down to him from generation to generation. This is not a young man that's going to leave to go find himself and hitchhike around Europe for the summer and stay in youth hostels. It's not this. That's what we think of, but it's not that. It's a betrayal, really, of treasured family, community values, and the world in which he was raised in, and everything that's considered holy at home. He is abandoning that. He is turning away from it. So leaving his home, he's basically saying, I don't have a home, and I need to go find one. And taking the inheritance and selling what his dad gave him and turning it into some sort of commodity that he can spend. A lot of scholars and authors that write about this, most of them conclude what he's basically saying is, I wish my dad was dead. That's the point there. I wish my dad was dead. So this is not just a prodigal kid that's going to go out and waste stuff. He's making major changes, life change. He's changing who he is. Anyway, it's a defiant rejection and rebellion towards his father's love. It's kind of the bottom line there. It's just that defiant rejection and rebellion towards his father's love. And by extension, his extended family, and entire way of life. He is just rejecting it and walking away from it. So going back to my earlier point that the son could not have come to this conclusion of what to do with one thought in one day or one night. There's something had to be going on for a long time that got him reconsidering these things, and may have talked to his dad about it. I'm sure his father would have noticed the disconnect. And the only thing I can think of today that could be remotely compared to this would be, we hear about kids, boys in particular, getting online and they get radicalized, so to speak, and then they head out and they join this group and start shooting and killing people and doing damage and that. And maybe they can't, it's a rejection of everything they were raised with. It takes time though. It doesn't happen overnight. That's the only thing I can think that would be close to this today, and I still don't think it's as, yes?
Just thinking about when you were 18 years old.
Yeah.
I don't want you to share about that in your life at that time, but was there something within you at that age that you said, I don't want to be with my parents anymore. I just want to go out and do life my way and live life my way?
Yeah, it started at 14.
You started at 14, but I think, is there something within us, all of us at that particular age, hey, we're supposed to leave home, I'm going,
Yeah.
I'm out, but there seems to be, and I think you're right in the, I wish you were dead, Dad, give me my money, I'm out. There's a spirit of maybe rebellion there in some way, but isn't there something within us where we all want to leave and go off and do our own thing?
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, definitely, no question. That's a great point, Bill, and we're gonna start talking about that right now because I've got my red notes here. And it says, there must have been a very powerful influence on him to leave. And so the question is, what could have changed the boy's thinking to decide to leave all his world consisted of? And often in our lives and with our children, what could have possibly influenced him to do that? Get him to consider those things? Any thoughts? He wants to be independent from everything he was raised in, this whole world. Yeah, Billy?
I know a man who has a daughter.
Yeah.
And a couple of sons as well. And the daughter, who just turned 18 recently, wants to live life her own way. And wants to kind of go away from the family. And now that I'm 18, I don't want to be told what to do. But I think and then there's also friends that are influences, not for good, but I'll just use light and darkness.
Yeah.
Who are encouraging this man's daughter, who turned 18 not so long ago, to drift off into the darkness. So there's outside influences. So I think the prodigal son might have had some pals.
Yeah.
In influence.
He wasn't online. We know that.
Yeah.
Or on the phone.
Yeah. Hey, why should you listen to your parents? What do your parents know?
Yeah.
Or your dad?
Yeah.
Blah blah blah.
It's the new millennium.
It's what?
It's the new millennium. We're doing things my way now, right?
Yeah, every generation, I think, knows more than their parents.
Yeah.
I did. I don't know as much as I used to, but I knew everything when I was about 20.
Just can't recall it all.
I wonder if there was division between the sons, because
Oh, yeah.
it says it was the younger son who left and asked for his inheritance, what was owed him. And then when he came back, the older son didn't appear to be happy that he was getting attention. He seemed jealous. And so I wonder if that is part of the root because in that culture, the oldest son was more prominent. He was gonna inherit
Well, he got
more.
2/3 of the inheritance.
He continued the family name. The younger son was just kind of gonna be forgotten. So I wonder, it seems to me that there had to have been some jealousy, pride.
Yes.
So much, there are other stories in the Bible too of
Yeah.
younger sons tricking older brothers for their inheritance, or, tricking their father. And
Sure.
so I think something had to have been going on with the sons.
Okay, that's great. Dave?
Hearing stories, the younger son may have heard stories of things that were happening in other cities and other parts of the land. that always sound better than what's happening here on the farm.
Yeah.
And, it's, so people talking about, the good life, that, and talking about how the grass is greener over there. And it's, can be alluring at times.
Oh, definitely. And Smith makes the point in the book that this young man could have seen caravans going by and, with their wares and differently dressed people and traveling all over the world with their goods, and it could have been, now we're not gonna see that, right? We're not gonna have a camel going through the backyard down the street. Kathy?
We have a daughter that's kind of in this situation, and for her, I think our Christian standards, if you will, I mean, the life that God wants us to live, she didn't want to. Again, peer pressure, I'm sure, but she left, and some horrible thing happened to her, and she blamed God. So she's still wondering.
Yeah, well, I get it. And, we have to remember that we're talking about the message, the lesson here of people walking away from God and wanting to live in a way that contradicts the way He has wanted us to live, like, inside of His love. We looked at that. And so the big picture is we're talking about God and us. And we fall into the younger son or the older son at different times somewhere. And so I want to talk about a word here because I think this word kind of applies to what's happening and can happen with us. And it's the word deceived. We base who we are, at least we start to, by words. And words that we say to one another, words that we read. And people wind up living by or deciding on different words that they believe are true. And we know that Satan is called the great deceiver. He was called the father of lies, is the way Jesus put it. And so he's always out there trying to get us to go in a different direction, through the culture, through everything, to walk away from God, to walk away from being at home with God. And I think that, we can look at this next slide here. Proverbs 14:12, it says that there is a way that appears to be right, but in the end it leads to death. And sometimes that word is translated seems. It seems like a right decision, and there's a very popular cliche in our culture where we say, well, it seemed like a right decision at the time. And it usually is in reference to something that we made a wrong decision there. And it kind of echoes back to Genesis chapter 3, where Adam and Eve said that it seemed right to Adam and Eve to take the fruit, but its end was the way of death for all creation. And obviously, it's not talking about physical death there. We are here. But it can certainly be the death of a relationship. We make decisions that aren't right, that aren't the way God has created life to be. It can be the death of a family. It can be the death of healthy emotions. It can be the death of health. It can be the death of our peace when we make a decision that we say, well, it seemed right, but what are we basing seemed on is the point here. And so, we do have an enemy, and he wants us to walk away from God. And that's what this story is about, is do we stay in the Father's house? Do we stay in God's house within his love? Or do we walk away from it? And sometimes, I'm sure some of us have had prodigal journeys, probably all of us, maybe just for 5 minutes, maybe for years, maybe for a week. Any thoughts on that, by the way? Like one of the questions I wrote down was what does the far country represent today in our culture? And, yeah,
You used the word deceit
yeah,
earlier
yeah.
on. Just thinking about the boy maybe being deceived,
yeah,
thinking he knows what's the right thing. I don't need my dad anymore. You know, get rid of that. And maybe his pals, if I would believe he'd have some pals, if he had a wee dad had a wee bit of money, he would have friends to influence him away from home. So being deceived in that to, hey, like young kids, well, some really young kids, they think $20 is a lot of money, or $100 or $1,000 in the bank account. Man, I'm gonna be set for life with $1,000. And then all of a sudden the far country is calling to take my $1,000 that I think is gonna last for years and years. And in a young person's mind, I mean, they think they've got a bucket load of money when the
Yeah.
reality is they don't. So the whole idea of being deceived,
yeah.
because we know what's right, as
Yeah.
the proverb says.
And it seems right to us,
Mhm.
like it did to, it's saying here in Proverbs, and like it did to Adam and Eve, even that, if that's a metaphorical usage of it, it really speaks to how we make decisions, how we conclude things, and what's it based on. Ben, were you gonna?
Yeah, I've just been cogitating on this whole idea of why did the younger son leave, and I think we've alluded to it, but it just brought me and you know, I relate to this story personally, and you know, I don't think that we can, and Billy alluded to it a little bit too, is we cannot discount the fact that like James says, we're all tempted by our own evil desire. So there's an element of that within the younger son.
Mm.
He had an evil, he just had a desire. He was tired, as you said, he was tired of the farm, or somebody said, I just want to go out and participate in the things that I desire, whatever that looks like.
Yeah.
And
Like the song says, all I wanna do is have some fun.
right, yeah, you know, and you know, ultimately the word is rebellion.
Yeah.
The word is just sheer rebellion.
Mm.
And like I said, I'm not throwing hand grenades at anybody else. I walk this walk.
Yeah.
And but it's just a sheer spirit of rebellion to a certain level. There may be other things that he could have rationalized. Oh my brother, he gets all the good stuff, blah blah blah, all that. But at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's just sheer rebellion.
Yeah, that is, yes, ma'am.
And I guess just adding to that, like the rebellion for a desire to be more, I feel like there's a core, Ms. Carroll did a study at the women's Bible class about the deceit and our desire for ourselves. I think when I think of the devil speaking, it's always about like, maybe I'm not good enough, or I want to be better over here. Like, so people will see me differently if I do
Yeah.
X, Y, and Z, right? So that rebellion sometimes comes because even like with Adam and Eve, it was like you'll know more.
Yeah.
Like something about me that will make me better, or I'll
Yeah.
get better on the other side of this thing.
Yeah. And the big deception is always based on moving away from God's love, moving away from our relationship with Him.
Right.
That's the bottom line. It's not, everything else is superficial compared to that.
It's very self-serving behavior too, Rick. Like it's,
Yeah.
you know, the son. It says the father divided up his property
Yeah,
and gave some of it to the son. So he's leaving his father with less.
yeah, he is, yeah.
But he himself feels like he has more. He doesn't care what he's leaving the father with. He cares what he's leaving himself with. And so there's, you know, there's this desire to be your own master, whatever the consequence is to someone else.
Rick, I think there's the thing where it's a normal process for your children to grow and mature and be able to take care of themselves or be on their own. So some of that's normal, you know, just
Sure.
normal growing up and all of that. I remember my mother saying many times, she said, part of me wants to keep you kids little, but she said, but I know that's not the normal. We need to, and I think that may be getting missed today a little bit with the youth of being a little more independent and not always counting on someone else to do for them. And, you know, you have to work hard, you know,
Yeah.
it's not gonna be always handed to you. But yeah, I think that God created that normal process, because if you didn't, you know, kids
Never
wouldn't wanna
grow
grow up or move on, you know. You gotta give them a little confidence to do it, you
Sure.
know. And then, of course, you have the rough knocks sometimes, like, I was sure when I went away to college, oh, I'd do fine. Well, I was there a couple weeks, I was bawling, you know, missing home. And, of course, they always say you gotta stick it out and it'll be all right, and it was.
Yeah.
But for somebody to tell me I was gonna be that homesick before I went, I wouldn't have believed it. I wouldn't
Yeah.
have thought that.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, so.
Rick, you talked about value last week.
Yeah.
You know, Ben talking about rebellion. Rebellion to somebody his age is very different from rebellion of a 20-year-old.
That's a
You
good
know,
point,
you have to think about, you know, does this young person, what's their relationship with the father?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And, you know, how does he value that? And clearly in this particular instance, he didn't value it at all.
no.
At all.
And they would have been, by the way, late teens, early twenties in this
Yeah.
story.
And so, you know, we talk about, it seems to me that we try to jam everybody into one small homogeneous group. And, you know, I've got a child that we couldn't get, once we sent to college, we couldn't get her to come home. I got another one that couldn't get him out of the house. So, you know, all kids are not the same.
Yeah.
And we need to think about it, I think, in a little more complex terms that in trying to say, well, everybody is this way.
Yeah,
And what does that young person value?
yeah,
And what's rebellion to them as opposed to rebellion to us?
yeah,
It's a very, very different. If I walked away today from God, I think it would be a very, very more serious thing than the 20-year-old walk.
Yes, yeah.
yeah, that's a
What
great point.
what I think is interesting is that, you know, the son wanted to leave, but the father gave him his inheritance. I mean, the father didn't die yet. He gave that to him, and do you think he did that thinking that maybe he would come back because he gave him something?
I think it's like God, you know,
Oh.
God allows us to walk away from him. He doesn't keep us locked up in the house, because then our response to his love would not be love, our love for him. And God gives us the freedom to walk away, and that's why his love is so unconditional. It's not because we walk away or don't, it's because of who we are as his children. So that's the way I look at that. And
It's a lot of love that the father had for him.
oh, it's amazing, it's amazing.
It's something.
Let me mention this slide here with Luke 8, where it talks about the seed that fell among the thorns stands for those who hear, but as they go on their way, they're choked by life's worries, riches, and pleasures. They do not mature. But the seed on the good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. Now the word there, logos, or it's actually logon in that verse, it's not just a Bible verse that it's talking about here. It's the word there really means like a message, the embellishment of an idea, truth, reality. And they're all related to a relationship with Jesus, a relationship with God. So it kind of comes down to whose words, whose ideas, what reality, what truth do we listen to? Does the influences of the world and worldly ideas and things contrary to God seem to us more logical or truthful than the words of the way God communicates to us, and what he says is more valuable to us? And then that affects, of course, what our self-talk is like. What are we telling ourselves about ourselves and about other people and about reality and about raising our kids and our grandchildren and being children ourselves? What is our self-talk about that like? And then I guess there's 2 points in this verse I wanted to bring up. And the second one is, how in the world do we get a noble and good heart? How do we do that? Because it's out of a noble and good heart that this word is to flourish. This message from God, this godly reality. That's where it's to grow. That's the good soil that's referred to in this other parable. How do you get a noble and good heart? Do you just have one or you don't? Can we work on getting one?
Is it about submission?
What?
Is it about submission to God?
Yeah, that would be part of it.
I think it's slowly cultivated in each of us.
Slowly cultivate, that's a
Yeah, just-
great point.
Just
Yeah.
like with our children, we're cultivating hopefully that,
Yeah.
right? In us, we need to, it's not just I pray and then the next day I get it, right?
Yeah.
It's prayer, it's recognizing, okay, what are those faulty thoughts, as you were saying? Or it's recognizing, what do I need to improve
Yeah.
on? Not that we do everything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
God obviously steps in and, we're made perfect, we're not perfect, if
Yeah.
that makes sense. But I do think it's something that, it's a lifelong process.
Yeah.
I think we're always, every day deciding, am I gonna be good soil today or thorny soil?
Yeah. And we are given a directive to guard our hearts, to watch over what's really important, who we are and what we think and what we value, to watch over that because, we don't want to go on this journey to a far country.
And we can think on these things.
Yeah.
Whatever's true and honorable and lovely and right and good repute, those kind of things that helps to cultivate a pure heart.
Yeah.
Think
That's
on
great.
these things.
And so there is a responsibility on our part to journey towards a pure heart, a noble heart, a heart that God wants us to have. So we can ask ourselves a question, to whom do we belong? And yes, Billy?
I just think about the cultivating the noble and good
Uh-huh.
heart. If the boy stayed home, close to his dad, and maybe his father's character would influence him, I guess it goes back to Josh's cultivate. Being around, of course, we're thinking about being in the Word and letting the Word transform us.
Uh-huh.
There's, depending on, there's could be rocks and weeds in my soil that needs to be flushed out. So it has to be being close to God.
But sometimes sleeping with the pigs helps you listen to your father.
Good point.
He's a good teacher.
That's a great point, Jim. Anyway, we're about to get dinged with the 2 bells. I wanted to close up with this. I brought this up a few times in the class. It's a quote from the book that says, knowing the Creator in a love union is where humanity finds the reason for existence and identity of a person. And that's really what this entire chapter is about, and especially this particular parable of the 2 sons and the father. That knowing God, knowing the Creator, in this love union, not just knowing Him and keeping the rules, but in a love union, is the way God created us. It's the reason we have existence and find who we really are, not by the way the young man is trying to do it. He proved that was wrong. Any other thoughts before we get zapped? Yeah.
Your very first point about the depth of the betrayal of the son to the father. I think that's key for us to understand the rest of the story.
Oh, yeah.
To grasp hold of the father's love, how he was hurt. I mean, to really grasp the hurt of the father as he gave away his part of the inheritance, and recognizing what that meant for the son's relationship with him at that point. And then later on, when we see the son coming to his senses and rethinking his relationship with the father, how he thought it was, until he discovered how it really was when he got home.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's a good note to close on, Ben. We're not having class next week. We have our guest speaker coming in. So we'll be back together in 2 weeks, and I think if we were to read chapters 7 through 9, that would be relative to our next class, so.
And we have to sit close together today.
No, we don't.
Oh, that's.
it's
is it-
finished.
It's all open. No, it's not finished.
Oh, okay.
Half the two middle sections are almost finished. There's a few things